So I just want to get on here really quickly and share my testimony. My name is LaTosha Atkins. I'm from Albany, Georgia, born and raised. I grew up on the east side, in the projects, in the hood, amongst the impoverished. But when you're a child, you don't see it that way. You just know that this is your home. I was a happy child. I loved playing outside with cousins and the neighborhood kids. I enjoyed trips to the corner store and McDonald's. Everywhere my mama took me, I was told how pretty I was. I'm the baby of 4 kids. My mom has 2 girls, including myself, and 2 boys. They are much older than me. There is at least a 15-year gap between me and my siblings, and I have a different dad from them. I didn't learn until much later that my mom was still married to their dad when she met my dad. They were separated but married, and she told me he left and moved to New York for whatever reason. Because as I got older, I started to have, questions. You get older and you start figuring out, okay, well, why my last name? My last name, I have their last name because my dad didn't sign the birth certificate. So my last name should have been Williams, but I have my sibling's last name. Well, because my mom was married at that time. But people talk, information get back to you. And so when as I got older and I asked my mom, that's what she told me. That they basically weren't together, but they were still legally married. Now, my mama didn't know how to drive, never got her license, so she caught the bus or used public transportation or walked wherever it was that she needed to go, and I was right with her, which is why I walk so fast to this day. Like when I tell you my mama walked everywhere, she walked everywhere. Now, even though, she would catch the bus, of course, the bus is only going to take you so far. So you still have to walk some distance to get where it is that you're going. But yes, thanks to her, that's why I walk swiftly. And I don't mind going on walks. I love to go on a good walk when the weather is nice and just be outdoors. Like that's one of my things I definitely enjoy doing. And then that's my alone time with God. Like that's when I feel the most intimate with God is when I'm walking. Some weekends I would go over my granddaddy's house and see my sister and one of my brothers. My oldest brother still lived with my mama, and I would play outside with the neighborhood kids or amongst myself. It was a different atmosphere, but in a good way. And what I say by it being a different atmosphere at my granddaddy's house is going from the projects to a more quieter neighborhood. And plus it was a house, so he had a full front and backyard. A lot of space to, just play as a kid. So I remember my granddaddy having a Japanese plum tree in his backyard. He had wild berries, peaches, a pecan tree. I want to say I even saw pears. So, and I was just one of those kids who just ran around and I enjoyed outdoors. But also what made going to my granddaddy's house special was he always took time out with me. So I used to be so fascinated when my granddaddy would count backwards. I would ask him to count backwards or say his ABCs backwards. And they used to just blow my mind as a little girl to hear him do that. So I have very fond memories of going to my granddaddy's house. My granddaddy was a pastor, so we spent a lot of time in church. I mean a lot. I mean the all-day services where you go in the morning, you take a break and go get something to eat, and you come back at like 3 or 4 o'clock and have a whole nother service. Yes, that kind of church. But I got baptized, me and my cousin, at the age of 5. Life was sweet. Then my life turned upside down at the age of 6. My mom gets locked up. Now, by this time, we had moved out the projects, but we were still living in the hood, and she moved into a house. So she got her house. It was me, my older brother, and my dad. I don't know much about my dad except that he liked music, created things with his hands, and he used to collect popsicle sticks and made many houses and things with them. He also didn't have a car, but he had a bike, and sometimes I would sit on the front step with him eating sardines. He also liked fishing, but that's about it. I didn't learn until I got much older that I had uncles and I believe a few aunts, but it wasn't until I went to high school and I actually was able to meet one of my uncles And he got me some perfume for Christmas. I'll never forget Tommy Girl. That was my first bottle of perfume. And that was my last encounter with him. That was the last time I saw him. Now, my dad did pass away. I ran into my family again. But when you don't know someone, you just know of someone, there's no connection there. So even at the funeral, like, no one exchanged numbers. Nobody tried to be like, hey, let me get your number so I can keep in touch. It was none of that. It was like I attended the funeral and I just went on about my business, because once my mom got locked up, my dad, he went his way. It just was a whole big mess. And you'll hear that as I continue to go on. But so that was kind of how that dynamic played out. So we moved into a house, and again, life was good. I was thriving in school, still playing with the neighborhood kids, seeing family, just normal things, just living a regular kid life. My oldest brother lived there as well. So I'm in the first grade, 6 years old, around this time, and I remember my oldest brother had a girlfriend he would bring to my mama's house. Now, mind you, I'm the baby of 4 kids. My mom has 2 girls, including myself, and 2 boys. They are much older than me. There is at least a 15-year gap between me and my siblings, like I said earlier. So I was the baby. I was more like, even though I was their sister, it was also like I was their child because of the age difference. So back to my brother's girlfriend. She was pretty, she seemed nice, and she took to me like I was her child. She spent a lot of time around my family. She had a son from a previous relationship, and we actually were the same age. And we went to school together. We even shared a class together too. I want to say he was in my class. Her and my brother also ended up having 2 kids together as well. One day at school, he used the bathroom in his clothes. Now, his mom told him if he did it again, he would get in trouble. Well, it did happen again. And this time, she took his life. My brother's girlfriend whooped and scalded her oldest son in a bathtub full of hot water, and my mama assisted. Imagine this little girl witnessing all of this. That little girl was me. At 6 years old, I couldn't process what I was seeing. But he didn't pass away right then. But I remember seeing his pink flesh and his skin hanging off of his body. She made him go to bed afterwards. I remember going back to school, again, 6 years old, first grade. I have to make sure I put emphasis on that to let you all know like how young I was. I was still a baby. Six years old is a baby. First grade, and the police were there. I was pulled out of class. I was asked a few questions, but I don't remember my response. But what I remember is home wasn't home anymore. I stayed with my granddad and sister while my mom was in jail. She was bonded out until her trial date. My mama got into a new relationship and lived down the street from my granddaddy. I would visit her sometimes, then go back to my granddaddy's house. My granddaddy had a stroke and was on hospice. He passed away at 83. My mama and my brother's girlfriend both went to prison, and I went into foster care. I lived with an older couple who also had other foster kids. Beautiful neighborhood, beautiful home, God-fearing, and family-oriented. Very different from the environment I grew up in. I wasn't in foster care long, probably about a year. Then I moved in with my sister. She was still at my granddaddy's house, but at some point she moved out. I think there was like a family situation of like who's gonna get the house as once my granddaddy passed, and so they couldn't come to an agreement. So my sister ended up leaving, and she moved to Pennsylvania with her husband and kids, and that left me. I had to go move in with my oldest brother and his family because she told me I couldn't leave the state. Then my sister and her family moved back to Georgia. Some time passed, I want to say a few years, because I know once I moved in with my brother, I was transitioning into middle school. I was going to start my first year of middle school, so 6th grade. And that was when I moved in with my brother. So 6th through 8th grade, for 3 years, I stayed with my brother. And then my 9th grade year was when I moved back in with my sister. I'm jumping ahead of myself, but yeah, I'm trying to remember, where I was in that point in time. But like I was saying, then my sister and her family moved back to Georgia, and I moved in with her. I was constantly uprooted. Having to adapt and adjust wasn't a good thing. I never felt loved. I felt like I was a burden everywhere I lived. I felt like I was just being tolerated, you know. I felt like I was just another obligation, you know, because mind you, like I said, my siblings, they already had children and families of their own. And so I just never felt genuine love. Not saying that it wasn't there. I just didn't feel it. I was picked on for being sensitive and for always crying. I was bullied by the very people that were supposed to love me. The atmosphere I grew up in was toxic. Peace didn't exist. Even when I went to sleep, I was tormented. I would pray to God for peace. I learned how to people please because of it. I hated confrontation. I hated arguing. My identity was stripped away. I was robbed of my innocence. I cried a lot. I cried a whole lot as a kid. And I was teased for it and I was picked on about it, you know, quit crying, stop all that crying, you know, because like nobody knew how to soothe me. Nobody knew how to make the pain that I was experiencing go away. Nobody knew what to do. So it was just basically like, get over it, because I don't know what to do. So you need to get over it, you know, because there's nothing I can do about it, essentially. And it hurt me. It just made things worse. It made things worse. And I found myself escaping through books. I used to read a lot as a kid, and I still enjoy reading to this day. But one of my ways of coping was reading. I also would pray. And because I was a child, I couldn't express myself. It was only so much I could say. You know, you don't want to be disrespectful or rude to, you know, your parents and things, or the people who are caring for you. But I dealt with a lot of bullying. I dealt with a lot of bullying and being blamed for things that I didn't do. You know, just, it was a lot, like a Cinderella story. You know, how Cinderella used to get picked on by her stepsisters, how they used to just bother her for no reason. I dealt with a lot of that. But I was desperate for love, and I was looking for it in all of the wrong places, when the whole time God was saying, here I am. I went into the military after graduating from high school. But let me go back and kind of share with you. Now, by this time, with me being in high school, I was living with my sister then. So I lived with my brother through 6th through 8th. And then 9th and throughout my high school years, I lived with my sister. So in high school, I had a pretty average life, you know. I didn't have everything I wanted, but I had what I needed. I got my first job my junior year. I worked at Red Lobster. So I was bringing in a little money to buy school clothes and get my hair done, or, you know, whatever it was that I want to do. I still had to help out and pitch in. Because when nobody bringing no money in and not do nothing, not contribute, that's just what it was. You know, I wasn't making much, but that's just what it was. But right after high school, right after I graduated, I went into the military. I met my son's dad, who was much older, 15 years older. And I thought I was in love. You know, here's this older man who, he was taking care of me. He was giving me money. He was, you know, he was good to me. But I knew it couldn't be anything long term. Like, he even wanted to marry me. He wanted to marry me. And actually, like a few years back, he even mentioned one time we had a conversation. He was talking about how he was madly in love with me. But I knew with such an age gap that I was going to outgrow him, or he was going to outgrow me. But, you know, in the midst of all of that, I became pregnant. And it was like the moment that I became pregnant, the relationship shifted. He got orders to be stationed elsewhere. And I went through the entire pregnancy by myself. Now, when he got the orders to go to another duty station, he did want me to come with him. That was when he wanted me to marry him. But again, I was afraid. I kept thinking about the future. Like, do I want this? You know, do I want a husband? Like, what is that? I didn't even know what that meant, to be married. You know, like, what is that? Because I didn't have any healthy examples of marriage. Like, there was no healthy examples around me. And so I didn't. And he went on his way. And I stayed, you know, back home and took care of my child. And, but like I said, it was like the moment I got pregnant, it's like the devil said, mission accomplished. Now, at that time, I knew of God, but I didn't have a relationship with him. With me looking back now, because I have the understanding to put words to what I was experiencing, I now know that was the enemy's mission. You know, the enemy don't want to see no happily ever after. You know, that is not the objective for anybody. So, especially, you know, with me dating someone who was much older, plus he already had kids prior to getting with me. He already had 4 children, and he had been married before. So I'm like, this man have seen way more and experienced life, you know, way more than me, than this little 19-year-old. So again, things were going to change anyway. However, I wasn't ready for marriage. But it's like his personality changed. It's like he started to kind of distance himself. It was more so me and my son became an out of sight, out of mind type of thing. It's like, okay, I'm in a whole nother state. So I can kind of just move on and suppress whatever he was feeling, whatever emotions he may have been feeling, you know, and that was that. Like, he moved on and I just had to process everything. Because, see, Satan wants to create a generation of baby mamas and a generation of detached deadbeat dads. The enemy's objective was to have my son be a carbon copy of him. Go around making babies with every woman he deal with and be proud of it. Thinking that's the definition of a man. Because you do have a sector of men who, like, they parade their children around like a badge of honor. Like, you know, they brag about having 18 kids from 6 different women. And not realizing each one of those children, if they're, you know, those kids, like, those are broken homes that you created. So it's division. And that's what the enemy wants. He wants division. Anything that's going to go against the order of what God has in place and what he desires for us, the enemy is all for it. Anything that's going to oppose what God has for us. And God operates out of order and decency. And he blesses a union between a husband and wife. That's what God desires for us. But the enemy wants you to be a baby mama. He relishes in you being a baby mama and the detached men who go around who, you know, love them and leave them mentality. So I ended up getting out of the military on a hardship because I was pregnant. So I don't know if that's still a thing now, but I was able to get out on a hardship. And I got a full-time job and raised my son. I had a 1-bedroom apartment and it was just me and my baby. Now I had help here and there, but my son was ultimately my responsibility. Family would watch him on the weekends and when I had to work, and then I would pick him up and go on about my day. I would receive child support, occasional visits from his dad, and that was that. That was that. But we know that's not raising up. That's not co-parenting. We know that, you know, you can call it that, but it's not real co-parenting. You know, it's just doing what you can. A year into the marriage, years later, I met someone at my job. We fall in love, get married, and I'm thinking the whole time I can now have stability in my life. But I was wrong. When you come from that amount of trauma and pain, only God can fill that void, not man. So I was still, you know, trying to pick up the pieces. After my son's dad, after we broke up, I was single for about 4 years. I would go on little dates here and there, but I was single for 4 years before I met my ex-husband. So I was like, oh, this is it. Finally, I can, you know, lock in with somebody. What was I mistaken? A year into the marriage, I knew I was in trouble. We trauma bonded, but it was disguised as love. He was mentally unstable and overwhelmingly emotional. Meeting his family was the weirdest thing. They were ashamed and embarrassed because he too grew up in poverty and dysfunction. But we put on a happy face and convinced ourselves we were all we needed. We were all that mattered. I gave birth to my daughter. Now I have 2 children. My ex-husband tried to fulfill the role as a father and husband, but struggled to do so. We were unequally yoked. I had shut God out of all my decision making. That is why I go so hard for him now, because I don't want to ever make that mistake again. I never want to think I know more than the Lord, because I don't. But I started to see a shift in our relationship about a year in. It was like I saw how he wasn't able to process his emotions. He wasn't able to self-soothe. He pretty much like gave me his issues, like, here, you deal with them. And even though I was trying to be the level-headed one in the relationship, it's like no one person can do it on their own. Like, the other person has to be willing to do the work and want to get the help that they truly need. And, you know, like some women do, and I've made that mistake as well, you know, get married and now you want God to bless that mess, but he's not. He don't do it. He don't do it because you all out of order. You can't be out here fornicating and doing whatever, and, you know, and then think God's going to just step in and make it all better. No. So the cheating, arguing, financial struggles gradually creeped into our marriage. I felt like I was sleeping with the enemy with the level of disrespect I was receiving. The cheating got so bad, he ended up having twins with another woman. I was ashamed, embarrassed, hurt, all the emotions you could imagine. And because I wanted so badly for the marriage to work, I was willing to deal with a lot. I dealt with a lot. I tolerated a lot that I should have never done. And I don't recommend anyone does that. But when you don't know what love is, you don't know what love is. You don't even know how to love yourself. There's no way you can love someone else. There are a lot of people who think they're in loving relationships and they're really not. You don't know what love is until you've experienced God's love. Until you're locked in with him and allow him to love on you. And allow him to bring you the husband or wife that he desires for you to have. That's when you can say you know what love feels like. Then to see him move on with another woman like nothing ever happened. Imagine that. I was crushed. I had to still show up to work with a smile on my face. I had lost weight. I was ridiculed. And it wasn't like I was looking for it. You got to think about it. There are people who will make sure you see that they've moved on. You know, they're like, people will make it a point to make you know that they moved on. And then you even have family members tell you, even if they do it in an innocent manner, people will go out their way to make sure you know that what someone else has going on. So while I was in the process of trying to heal and move forward in my life, I still had people bringing stuff to me and trying to make me be aware of what, you know, he had going on. I'm like, I don't care. You know, he did what he did, and I just want to move on. So I needed someone to take the pain away. So after 9 years of being married, 10 years of us together, we were married for 9, but we were together for 10. So I always have to make sure I clarify that, because that was one of the things he used to argue with me about. Because I used to say we was married for 10 years, and he made it a point to say that we weren't married for 10 years. I'm like, okay, so what? We were together for 10, but we were married for 9. We filed for a divorce September 2023. And even before it was finalized, I started dating again. The worst thing an unhealed person could do. I don't recommend it at all. Please don't. Please wait till the divorce is finalized. Spend some time with yourself. Wait till the divorce is finalized and heal. Don't even just wait till the divorce is finalized. Even after it's finalized, spend time with yourself. Especially when you've been with someone for so long. You got to know what it's like you got to sit tight. You just got to. I know it is easier said than done. I know it hurts because we all try to look for a way to cope with our pain. But jumping into another relationship is not one of them. Because that person only becomes collateral damage. That's it. And so the divorce was finalized January 2024. And I thought I was healed. Absolutely not. Healing is a process. I got into a relationship with someone very brief, but caused enough damage to crush my heart. So I didn't date that person for long. Like, we started talking end of February. It was over before March was even complete. Like, it wasn't even a full month. Because I immediately saw this person's red flags. I was like, oh no, ain't no way. Ain't no way I'm finna lock in with this. So I jumped out of that relationship real fast. I was too busy trying to prove to people that I was okay when I wasn't. The same year we divorced, my ex-husband remarried. I was left behind to pick up the pieces. I was empty. Because I felt like everybody was just like, I felt like everybody just kind of sided with whatever it was that he told them. You know, because that's how it feels when you're on the outside looking in, when you don't really know what's going on because you're busy at home taking care of your children. You know, you still got to show up for your kids. And then, you know, meanwhile, the dad is out there just living his best life. So I went through a period of that where I was like, what is going on? But I got past it. It wasn't until April of 2025 I got serious with my walk with God. I told myself I can't keep moving like this. I'm only hurting myself. That is when the real healing took place. So once I locked in for real, not doing all this fake self-healing, not all this solo dating, romanticizing my life. Like I got serious with God because that's when the healing really started to take place. Like you cannot do it alone. You have to have God to take you through the process, especially when you've dealt with that level of trauma and pain. You got to give it to God. Like you cannot do it by yourself. I don't care what self-help book tell you that. I don't care what relationship coach tell you that. I don't care what therapist. You cannot do any of those things without Christ. It's mandatory. And so I made that decision in April 2025. Like, yeah, we through playing. I said, Lord, I'm done running. Have your way. Let me tell you something. You don't know what love is until you allow God to love you. God's love is perfect. It quenches you from the inside out. So you get to a place where you're like, you don't even start dwelling on a man. You're not even dwelling on a relationship because you're so locked in and you're so focused on the relationship that you have with him. He don't even make room for nobody else. I'm just being honest. He don't even make room for nobody else. He like, no, you gonna be focused on me. You focus on me right now. I'm your man. And I got so comfortable. And I'm still comfortable. I'm so comfortable with knowing that I can rest in God's love and in his healing, and I'm in a better place now. I'm in a better mindset. I see the change. I see the growth. I see how far I've come from 2023 up until 2026, actually even back from just being a little girl up until now, how I've dealt with my emotions, how I've dealt with trauma, how I've dealt with pain, and how I show up as a mom to my children is all because of God. I never ever want to experience love or life without Adonai. He walks in front of me, not beside me or behind me. He's the general of all generals. No amount of stars can outrank him. They got to make way for you, and I look forward to all that God has in store for me because this is only the beginning. It's up from here. And even with this here, what I told you, I can make additional breakdowns and more videos because there's so much more detail I can go into as far as just the marriage alone, different experiences as a child. I can even break down even further. So this is just an overall synopsis of where I've come from up until present day. But it was very much important that I share this because I'm not perfect. I never deem myself as perfect. I've never tried to come off as perfect. I'm just one of those people. I've always been low key. I've always been reserved and kept to myself. That's just my personality. But when you talk to me and you get to know me, you got a friend for life, for real, for real. If you show up as your authentic self, you will always get authenticity from me. I love people, and I love people from a genuine place. I don't want to see nothing but the best for people. I don't go into situations with ulterior motives. My love is not transactional. And again, this is only the beginning. And Lord, I look forward to where you're taking me and my family because it only gets greater. It only gets greater. You reveal so much to me. You reveal so much to me, Lord. And I know, Father, you're going to hold up your bargain. You're going to hold up your end. You're not a liar. You're going to hold up your end. You're going to do exactly what it is that you said you're going to do. And I'm going to do exactly what I said I'm going to do. And that's honor and obey you.